This has got all of the publications that IUCN WCPA has produced in the last few years. It includes the categories, and the categories in various languages. It includes the supplementary marine guidelines, which have also been produced in English, French and Spanish. If you didn't get one and we ran out, you can get them from the Protected Planet Pavilion on the 3rd floor of the ICCCE, whatever it's called. People were also asking about PowerPoints. Obviously, we produced some PowerPoints for this presentation, but we've also produced a series of, I think it's 5 training PowerPoints on the categories, from introducing the categories through to category assignment. They've been produced in English, but Thierry from the IUCN French Committee has translated them into French. And Jim Barbarak, if he's here, or he's still outside, has very kindly translated them into Spanish. So all of those PowerPoints are available. At the moment, they're not actually loaded anywhere specifically. IUCN WCPA has just relaunched its website, and certainly one of the things that we want to get onto that website are all of these training materials. But in the meantime, if you do want any of these PowerPoints or any of these materials, if you can please let us know. We've asked you all to put either your cards or your names on the pieces of paper. So if you put against those, if you'd like any of those materials, let me know. Or I think most of you have my email anyway from signing up to the campus. And just one other quick thing that I wanted to mention is that one of the things that we've been doing with the UK category project was trying to build up a bit of kind of publicity and interest around the conservation community in the UK about the project. And Chris has developed this UK Categories Club, and this is the first newsletter. I think we've put copies on all of the tables. And it's just an example of how you can start building a constituency around categories projects, particularly in somewhere like the UK where we have so many different sort of organisations involved. Anyway, I'm now going to hand over to Nigel, who will chair the panel, and we can open up the floor to...
I want to ask about the number of overlap of the...
Oh, thank you, John, yes. Thank you, everybody, for prompting me. Okay, sorry, I forgot to ask. As I said earlier, we have 3 round-table sessions planned for after the panel. One on marine protected areas, one on assigning categories in Europe, and one generally on assigning and using the categories. Could we have a little bit of a show of hands to know, firstly, who's interested in only looking at marine protected areas? Great. Is anybody interested in the marine protected areas but would also like to go to, say, the Europe or the other one? Do we need to split some of these? Okay, so it sounds like we do need to do a split. Who wants to go to the Europe one? Only the Europe one? Right, Europe one. And are people interested in the general assignment? So if we did half an hour each on these, so if we did half an hour, 2 concurrent half-an-hour sessions. So the MPA, for instance, roundtable, will do a half-an-hour session, and then people can transfer around. Would that work? One rotation. Okay, we'll work it out and explain it a bit more clearly after the panel session. I'll ask Peter to try and work out how to explain that more clearly, but we'll make sure that you will get a chance to look at the issues that you want to. Okay, so could the people who made the presentations please join the panel? So that's Roger and Young. Oh, okay. So it's a smaller panel, that's probably good. Roger and Jose, unfortunately Young's had to go off to another event. I'm going to join the panel too,
and John Day is joining us. John's with the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, being critically involved in the development of the marine categories for the last, I don't know how many years. John, everyone else is, we're not going to, the panelists aren't going to speak, but I'll ask John just to quickly introduce himself before we take the questions.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, Nigel. As Nigel just said, I've been involved in marine categories trying to apply them for quite a while. As many of you know, the Great Barrier Reef is a multiple use and zoned area, and the original way the application of the categories worked didn't really help us with zoning. So since about the 90s, we've been very keen to try and ensure that multiple use zoned areas could be effectively applied, or categories could be effectively applied. There's many other things we'll talk about in our little roundtable group, particularly the issue of fishing. That's been a critical one, whether fishing is allowed in different categories. But with the trend towards larger and multiple use MPAs, I think that the EU guidelines are really critical. As Dan said, we're on a journey. When you see them, I think we've come a long way, but they're not perfect, and they certainly won't keep everyone happy around the world. But they are a long way better than what we've had in the past. So I look forward to discussing in our little roundtable group later. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, we've got around half an hour, 40 minutes for the panel, then we go into the round tables. So probably half an hour, in fact, we're running slightly late. So I'll take questions, and then just to speed things up, I'll also suggest one panelist to answer, at least initially. So any questions, please? Yes.
Yes, I'm really humbled by the United Kingdom and the Austrian and the Korean experiences. But they really worry me because it just shows the amount of time and the amount of effort needed to get this going. We got the Aichi target to meet in 8 years. 8 years just fly by. So we need to find something that will allow us to, let's say, have the categories and have, because we cannot have management efficiency if we don't have the categories. We won't have something to compare them to. So we really have to brainstorm something that will allow for, I'll call it quick and dirty. It shouldn't be that way, but it's going to be that way, that we can start applying so we end up with maybe 8 years with something useful. I'm going to propose something I just thought about, because I don't think we'll be able to get democratic participation in the even in the category assignment process. What if we use the same little arrows, maybe that the Millennium Assessment goals used in ecosystem services and maybe little charts that say is the category, the objectives of the category are met fully, they are sort of met, or they are way below. So it would be, I would call it like let's have you would have a number 6 minus, or number 2 plus, or something that helps guide the international commerce of the data. Have a look at what it goes. If the government qualifies itself as plus every time, then there's something wrong about that. If it's a mixed bag, then there's some analysis has been put into it. So we should start thinking about how we're going to do it for the energy target.
Who would like to answer that one? Sue and Roger both do, so both a chance. Important question, thank you.
I absolutely agree about the timescale, and one of the reasons why we decided to try and do this assignment standards project was to try and help people along with the first step. Because one of the things I think all the national projects have found is that it's taken them a year or more to get their heads around what exactly they need to do to start designing the projects. I think the UK project's taken us about 18 months. So by trying to do this review of all the experiences to date and develop some best practice from that, we're at least providing a step up. But one issue is that there's no funding out there to because nobody's interested in funding work on the categories. We had to scrabble together funding in the UK and we've kind of run out of it. So we do have a problem that, although I agree that it's a fundamental, before we move on to many other things, that we have an issue with funding, but certainly the advice on the categories assignment we're going to kind of try to rush through and get out by the end of the year. So at least it gives people that first step up to do a project, and they don't have to spend 18 months trying to work out, how to even approach it.
2 points from me. There is a way of doing the quick and dirty. It's quite interesting that the Spanish section of Europark Federation did a desktop approach to this using the old guidelines. I think it would be worth looking again at what they did, getting them to work with us in the network to update that, because I think their calculation was you could do a protected area in 10 to 15 minutes on a quick and dirty basis, but at least it was locked. I'm not entirely happy about that, but it is a potential way forward. I'm very pleased about the pulling together all these experiences so that we have one approach. Because if we have split approaches, we actually reduce the value of what I call the gold standard. I want to go back to the red list. I regard the categories and the parallel management effectiveness evaluations as the WCPA gold standards, rather like the red list. And if we actually think how long that has taken to evolve, and the fact that there are still lots of species groups that have never been properly assessed globally, and particularly at national and regional levels, we're talking about quite a longer time frame than 2020. We've got to have some outputs for 2020, of course, but I think we need to think big, because the more I look at what it as the products that WCPA has produced that are really valuable and valid in terms of practical delivery on the ground, it's the categories and the MEE. And they're not separate, they're actually together. The categories leads then into the MEE as well. And I still feel, despite the difficulties, that this should be part of the IUCN programme. That it's not us in the Commission that should be scrapping for money. There's a bunch of bureaucrats in GLAM that should be looking for money to fund this fundamental piece of work. Sorry, I sound as though I'm electioneering, but there is a fundamental problem in the Union that GLAM fundraisers are not fundraising for critical parts of the work that the membership in the commissions and in the regions wants to do.
Thank you, Roger. Next. Any other questions? Yes, please.
I'm involved with temperate grasslands and drylands, so I had a conversation this morning in anticipation of coming to this meeting about pastoralism. And I'm just curious what your experiences and your perspective are on pastoralism, because the folks I was talking to this morning feel very excluded. But yet, on the other hand, their lifestyle is keeping large landscapes intact. And so I'm just curious what your perspective is on that.
I'll have a go at that one.
I'll have a go. We've got a fundamental positive and a fundamental negative right through the European Union about pastoralism. The positive is that, as you say quite rightly, we are extremely reliant on traditional grazing management to maintain many of the habitats which are of international value because they're part of our Natura network of sites within Europe for birds and for other species and habitats. And that's now being recognised because people are talking about high nature value farming, which came out of the forums on pastoralism, which were thought to be a few fuddy-duddies who were thinking about, going back to the 19th or the 18th or the 17th century. Whereas I think it's now dawned on even people in Brussels, in DG Environment and DG Agriculture, which are the drivers of new policies, that high nature value farming is something that is not just a concept, it actually has a practical reality on the ground. And therefore, which brings me to the more negative, we are saddled with this ridiculous common agricultural policy across our 27 countries in the European Union. And it has been decided that we can't subsidise livestock production anymore. It's anti-competitive on the global scene, etc., etc. The result of which is that the traditional pastoralism is disappearing because there is no money being put in to pay the herders, the managers of these pastures, to put the animals in. We're having this great semantic debate about we're not paying for the animals, we're actually paying for the grazing management, which of course is quite fundamental, because these, in many respects, are arrested ecological systems but are regarded as very high value, particularly in the upland areas. So we haven't got to where we want to be. And to be honest, the conservationists have been rather stupid by saying, well, we have too much grazing. They won the argument, now we have too little, and we have under-management, and we haven't got that balance right in the policy or the practice yet. I hope that's of some interest.
Thank you. Sana, you had a question.
Yes, it's been very interesting, the whole session so far. I'm very glad I'm here. I was passed the word to come here. It's been really, really good. So we are starting our categorization in Finland. Nigel was in Finland in March. We haven't done anything since, but we're still hoping to do it. One of the issues is this kind of pastoralism for us as well, because we have reindeer herding in our northernmost parks, in our wilderness areas and national parks, and that's been something that we discussed with Nigel when he was there. That has to do partly with our indigenous population, the Sami people, and partly it's the Finns who are doing the reindeer herding. So that's something that we do need to look at quite carefully in our parks. But actually, my question is about marine protected areas. I would like to know what are the biggest differences or in these guidelines for marine protected areas compared to the ones that we have at the moment.
In many ways, there are not a lot of differences, but in other ways, I think you'll find the guidance quite useful. For example, most of our marine areas are very much three-dimensional, and we're moving towards, in many of them, vertical zoning or vertical management. So that's different from, say, the terrestrial situation. We've got huge areas that are very much multiple use zone, things like that. So those type of aspects are explained in the new guidelines. I talked about the issue of fishing. This is one that we've found has been quite misused around the world. People have taken the old definition of Category 2, which talked about it was appropriate for recreation, and thought, well, then we could allow recreational fishing in a Category 2 marine protected area. And the guidelines make it clear that that's not the way we see the use of the marine Category 2. So I think you'll find, when you look at them, in many ways they are just building on the 2008 guidelines, and we keep, throughout this document, referring to people to that and saying you need to go to the original guidelines for detail, but it helps people then say, well, how can we apply this in the marine situation? And we have, for each of the categories, a series of examples, and then we have, for example, a matrix talking about key marine activities, how they're compatible with the different categories, and we have a section specifically talking about fishing, both recreational, commercial, and collecting for traditional collecting, and things like that in the different categories. So hopefully you'll find it is useful, but I want to stress, as Dan said, this is the first attempt at trying to do it. This is a 36-page document. I think when people have tried to apply it, they'll find there is a little tweaking we need to do, but that's what will happen over time. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. I've got Eric and then Bruce, unless he was just stretching.
Bruce asked.
Okay. Oh, Bruce first, then Eric. All right, thanks, Eric.
Thank you. I work in the Pacific where resources and particularly human resources and expertise are really fragile. So what I'm looking for constantly are ways of streamlining these industries that have sprung up around management effectiveness or categories or all of the other sort of parts of planning that used to be well integrated and now have got, as I say, industries in their own right. And it seems to me after an exercise that we've just done in Samoa with a climate change project, working through the open standards, that you could actually just keep trickling down until the categories will almost be self-evident from what you've identified as your targets and your nested targets and your objectives and all the way through. And I think that's, if that dimension was even added to the open standards as I wondered if the question was really if Jose or anyone who's worked with the open standards has sort of taken that next step